Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some queen cakes or fairy cakes. This is a very old-fashioned recipe. When I was a child we used to have fairy cakes rather than those, rather than the muffins and the big cupcakes that we have these days. And they're a very simple cake, usually filled with currants. Now, I didn't have quite enough currants, so I've chopped up some sultanas and used those as well. But currants is the more usual thing. You could, of course, chop up some cherries or some cranberries or whatever. You can put any dried fruit in if you want to. But they're a very simple little cake. And they used to be made in little pans of a similar shape to this, perhaps. But they can be done in a bun pan, and I have a bun pan here which I use for mince pies and that sort of thing. But you can also buy these little fairy cake cases which will be just about good enough, or the right size for these cakes. So it's a very simple recipe, as I said, and I'll start off by preheating my oven to 180 degrees Celsius. That's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And I have greased my little fluted tins, and I've greased a couple of holes of the bun tin as well, so I can use that. But for the paper ones, obviously they don't need greasing. So I'll go on to the ingredients. And for this I have 227 grams, which is 1 2/3 cups minus 2.5 tablespoons of plain flour. That's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 113 grams, which is half a cup plus 1 tablespoon of caster sugar. I have 113 grams, which is 1 stick of softened unsalted butter. I have 70 grams, which is about half a cup of my dried fruit, which I have soaked and then drained and then patted dry. I have 2 medium eggs, which would be large in the USA. I have 60 millilitres, a quarter of a cup of double cream, 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, 2 grams, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 gram, a quarter of a teaspoon of ground mace. If you don't have ground mace, you could use ground nutmeg. It's a similar. Mace is the outer casing of the nutmeg. But you don't have to use any spice at all if you don't want to. You can leave that out if that's what you want to do. So the process that I'm going to use is slightly different to how I would usually do things, but I'm trying to base this on a recipe from a Mrs. Beeton cookbook, and I'm not entirely sure of why it was done in a particular way, but I'm going to do it that way, and that's to put my butter, first of all, into a bowl, and I'm going to beat that butter just by itself. Like that. And then I'm going to add in my flour and my mace and the baking powder. I'm just going to mix those together a little bit. And then on a low speed I'm going to mix those until the flour is incorporated into the butter. And I think that's probably good enough. And then I'm going to add in the sugar and the dried fruit, and I'm going to mix it again to get those combined. And that's good enough again. So I'm just going to set that to one side for a moment, and I have put my eggs into a jug, and I'm going to add the the lemon zest in, and the double cream, and then I'm going to whisk those together before they go into the rest of the mixture. So I'll pour that into my mixture, and the recipe from Mrs. Beeton then says to mix that together for 5 minutes, and of course she would be doing it by hand. So I'm going to use my hand mixer and mix it for a minute or so, I think. And so I think that's going to be good enough. And I'm going to transfer the mixture into my prepared cases. And I'm going to use, for mine, about 40 grams of the mixture for each case. So I'm going to weigh it, but you can eyeball it, basically. And so there I have 8 of the fluted tins filled, and I have 6 paper cases and 3 just in the bun tin by itself. So I'm going to put those into the oven, and I'm going to bake them for between 20 and 25 minutes until they rise up and brown on the top. And that will show that they're baked through. Then I take them out of the oven and leave them for a couple of minutes in that fluted tin to cool a bit. Then I'll turn them out onto a wire rack, and I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the queen cakes, or the fairy cakes, for 20 minutes. They rose up nicely. In fact, I could have made maybe 3 more and used 35 grams of the mixture rather than the 40 grams of mixture, because they rose up and filled the cases very well indeed. But the 17 I've made are perfectly fine. So this is what they look like. And as I said, they've baked up quite nicely, as you can see. That's the ones with a fluted edge, the ones in the paper cases, and the ones just in the bun tin. And I've been eating one of them, so this is what it looks like on the inside. And I'll have a taste of this. Very, very nice. There's the little hit of the mace, and Also the lemon, I think, and the mace works very well with the lemon. And I get the fruit as well. Of course, you can add more fruit in. I only used about 70 grams of fruit, I think. But you can use a little bit more if you want to. And these take very little time to make. The mixing method worked fine. I haven't mixed in that way before, but it worked fine. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.